I can't hear anything. Am I supposed to be able to hear? Hello?
Hey Teresa, this is Rob. Can you hear me?
Hey, Rob, I can hear you, but I can't hear what's going on in the chambers.
I can't hear them either.
Are we supposed to? I could hear them a second ago, but now I can't.
I think they mute it until the meeting starts.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay, that's fine. Just wanted to make sure.
Mhm.
Please rise for the invocation. Remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance. Father in heaven, we give you thanks for this day and for the many blessings you've given each and every one of us. We ask that you continue to provide your guidance and blessings upon all of us in this chamber this evening as we work through the issues of the city business, and help us come to reasonable and good decisions as we work for the better of the city. Please be with all of those in our community, especially those who need help and may not be able to ask for it. Know that they depend on your guidance and protection as well. Please be with each and every one of us inside the chamber this evening as we listen to each other, have understandings, and work well together for the best of the city. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. As I call this July 26, 2021 Troy City Council meeting to order, I need to first let everybody know we had an unexpected medical issue, and so this evening Mayor Pro Tem Brooks will be joining us via Zoom. And I will first and foremost need to let everybody know that, as you are aware, she can be reached for public comment and comments through the contact information that's on our website as normal. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, can you hear me first of all? Okay, good. I need, according to the rules, I need to just clarify, or I need to ask you where you are zooming in from this evening.
I'm in my home in Troy, Michigan.
Very good, thank you. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks will remain via Zoom to the course of this meeting, and with that, I will ask for the roll call. Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Here.
Councilmember Abraham?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Here.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Here.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Here.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Here.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Here.
All present. First up on the agenda this evening is certificates of recognition and special presentations. We have two this evening. We're going to start with C2, which is a proclamation to celebrate National Disability Independence Day, July 26, 2021. I'll be joined at the podium by Leslyn Angel, the President and CEO of MIUCP. Go ahead and meet me up here. Actually, why don't you come on this side, because I'm, there we go, there we go. We'll get it figured out. Good evening, Leslyn. Thank you for joining us this evening.
Thank you for having me.
I've got this proclamation to celebrate National Disability Independence Day today, and I'd like to read into the record and give you the opportunity to say a few words as well. So we'll start. Whereas National Disability Independence Day commemorates the signing of the Americans with Disability Act, the ADA, on July 26, 1990, the ADA provides protection from employment discrimination as well as better access to goods, services, and communications for people with disabilities. And whereas the day not only celebrates the anniversary of the ADA, but it also serves several other purposes. The law first broke down barriers that individuals with disabilities faced every day. It also marked a timeline of change that soon developed. Over time, common barriers such as narrow doors and small bathroom stalls became accessible to wheelchairs. Other examples include braille signs and crosswalks for the vision impaired. The changes improved mobility and safety. And whereas beyond structural changes, the Americans with Disability Act motivated designers to enhance technology. Often, physical limitations restrict a person's ability to access legal or health information. New assistive technologies make it possible to obtain the necessary information. And whereas, as accessibility improves, the world continues to change in other ways. Many of today's brick and mortar businesses are now ADA compliant. However, as more and more businesses switch to online versions, their websites need to meet the needs to be accessible too. With each advancement in technology, designers need to incorporate multifunctional approaches to fit every ability. And whereas we encourage all employers or designers to consider how accessible your business is to people with disabilities. The ADA empowers people with disabilities to stand up for their rights and to give shout-outs to accessible businesses and organizations. Might be the first time shout-outs is in a proclamation of the City of Troy, I just realized. Everyone is encouraged to use hashtag Disability Independence Day and share on social media. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy hereby recognizes July 26, 2021 as National Disability Independence Day, the anniversary of the Americans with Disability Act that passed in 1990. And be it further resolved that the City Council of the City of Troy calls upon our citizens, public and private institutions, businesses, and schools to affirm the principles of equality and inclusion for persons with disabilities, to celebrate the freedom the ADA inspires with forward-thinking design and technology, and to bring forth the promise of hope and freedom that is envisioned by the passage of the ADA. This is presented this 26th day of July 2021, signed by myself as the mayor, all members of City Council. Leslie, I present it to you, I'll give it to you and let you accept it. And we appreciate all the work you're doing on behalf of Americans with Disabilities.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, for presenting this proclamation on behalf of people with disabilities. Here in Michigan, there are over 1.4 folks with disabilities, and recognizing their civil rights is extremely important. 31 years ago today, the ADA was signed by President George Bush. And here we are today. Folks with disabilities continue to fight to live, work, and play and be part of their communities. I'm with Michigan United Cerebral Palsy. We're an organization that supports all people with disabilities. Our focus is to assist them in becoming part of their community, again, whether it's living and working and playing in their communities. So I thank you again for this proclamation and recognizing the importance of people with disabilities being part of our community. Thank you.
Next up on the agenda will be C1, which is a proclamation celebrating Star Scout Parker Mills, the recipient of the Boy Scouts of America Heroism Honor Award. Parker, I saw you come in. Where'd you go? There you are. Come on up. There you go. Here, come on this side. How you doing?
Good.
Good. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
I'd like to present this proclamation to you, and I'd like to read it into the record also because it's a pretty amazing story that you have, and we're really honored and proud to have you here in our city.
Thank you.
So, whereas Parker Mills of Boy Scout Troop 1707 was awarded a BSA Heroism Honor Medal. This is awarded for demonstrating heroism and skill in saving lives with great risk to self. The BSA National Court of Honor awards approximately 30 such awards each year all across the country. And whereas on Sunday, June 21st, 2020, the Mills family and some friends signed up for a 2-hour trip down the Sturgeon River. Some were in tubes, others in kayaks, and the Mills family, Mom Julie, son Parker, daughter Kennedy, cousins Caleb and Owen, opted for a 5-man inflatable raft, which was advertised as the easiest and safest option. Famous last words, so I heard you laugh. I heard you laugh. That they were instructed that there were a few obstacles, but that the ride was very easy and fun, and that the raft was very stable and easy to control. Everyone was properly fitted with life vests and sent off down the river. And whereas everyone was having fun when they spotted a tree that was right over a whirlpool. While trying to avoid the tree, they got pulled right into it. Parker and Owen were able to slide under it, but Kennedy got stuck, and Parker helped her get under it before she was crushed. Julie and Caleb were stuck in the back of the raft that was being pushed against the tree by the current at a super high strength. Parker took only a second to think, then told them that they should bail out of the boat before they got crushed. Caleb bailed out to the left, got under the tree, but the whirlpool sucked him under the boat. Julie bailed to the right, which was right inside the middle of the whirlpool and under the short end of the tree. And whereas when this happened, Parker assessed the condition of both people in the water and the other two in the raft, Parker knew that his mom and Caleb were underwater. Caleb pounding the bottom of the raft and Julie in very deep water where the current was pushing her deeper into the river. Parker decided it was safe, jumped into the deep river, and felt around for Caleb. When he saw him under the raft, Parker grabbed his life jacket, pulled him out from under the raft, and pushed him downstream toward the shore. And whereas Parker then rushed to climb back onto the raft to check on his mom, who had been underwater for a really long time, he saw her hands come up and he guided them towards the tree branch and the metal tie on the boat so she could pull herself up. She was very weak, so Parker helped pull her up, and together they moved towards the base of the tree. Parker worked to calm everyone down as he made plans to get the raft free and the family back to shore. So now, therefore, be it resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy hereby applaud and commend Parker Mills for his courageous actions to save his family from drowning on a rafting trip. And be it further resolved that the Mayor and City Council of the City of Troy invite all residents to recognize and celebrate the heroism of Parker Mills. You are to be commended for staying calm, making quick decisions, taking charge of a life-threatening situation, minimizing the stress of your family members, and saving your family without thought for your own safety. So this proclamation is presented this 26th day of July 2021. Again, Parker, this is signed by myself as mayor, all members of City Council. I present it to you, and I have to say, you're quite an amazing young man. Congratulations. Thanks.
All right. Thank you for inviting me here. I'd just like to give some words of encouragement to anyone. If you ever see anything bad happening, just to take action. You could make the situation worse by not doing anything. You can always help. You can never make the situation worse. Thank you.
Okay, that concludes certificates of recognition and special presentations. There are no carryover items this evening and no public hearings either, so we move on to public comment. We have several people signed up for in-person public comment this evening, which it's been a while since we've had that, so this is exciting. I'm sure we still have some submitted via voicemail and email as well. I had a request by the first person on the list to let Stephen Dunn go first, so I'm going to go ahead and honor that request, and I'll ask Mr. Dunn to come forward. As a reminder to everybody speaking tonight, we do have rules that are all in your agenda packet about how public comment is to be done. You have 3 minutes. You'll see a timer up here. When there's 1 minute left, it'll turn yellow. When it turns red, that's the end of your 3 minutes. Also, as a reminder, we do ask for your proper decorum and recognize you're speaking to all of us, not just one of us, and certainly not up to the audience. So please be respectful of our rules, and we're happy to be here and listen to you. So,
thank you.
Mr. Dunn, go ahead.
Thank you for hearing me tonight. I've resided in the city of Troy for the last 30 years and the Buckingham Woods subdivision for the last 26 years. I also operate a law firm based in the city of Troy. The permit in question would allow erection of a 5G pole in the Buckingham Woods subdivision without notice or an opportunity to be heard to the residents or compensation to the residents. The proposed 5G pole will affect property values in the neighborhood. It will stand 40 feet tall. It will be unsightly. It will emit radiation. You have performed those studies. The pole will have a box on it saying in large letters, "Caution." Below that, there will be a large radiation symbol with the 3 circles. Verizon's website acknowledges the radiation risk. It cites a 20-year-old FCC study for the proposition that there is no risk. The website does not draw any conclusions about radiation risk of 5G poles. The fact that this pole is only 40 feet tall is actually a bad thing because that means it'll be closer to the ground, closer to people. And studies show that the closer these poles are to people, the greater the radiation risk. Scientists are increasingly raising alarm about radiation risk of 5G poles. Switzerland has banned installation of 5G poles. Scientists believe that the closer you are to a 5G pole, the greater the radiation risk, as I just mentioned. The 5G pole in controversy would be placed practically in the Bloom's backyard. The Morissettes would have to look at the pole through their family room picture window. Manresa Jesuit Retreat House at 16 Mile and Woodward has a cell tower on their property. They derive approximately $75,000 a year in revenue from it. Public Law 365 of 2018 provides no compensation to homeowners and a mere $20 annually to the municipality. That's pathetic. The permit in controversy will abuse a public easement for the benefit of Verizon, a private company. The public easement is upon the private land of the Blooms. The permit in controversy violates the homeowner's rights to due process of law guaranteed by the 5th and 14th Amendments to the U.S. Constitution. It must be rescinded. Most 5G equipment in the city of Troy is placed on commercial streets atop existing telephone poles. Most 5G installations are not placed deep in residential neighborhoods as the proposed pole here. There are reasonable alternatives for the placement of the proposed 5G pole, as my neighbor, Michael Morissette, will go over with you. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Dunn. Please. Folks, we can't have applaud for public comment. I know, I understand, and there's been many things I'd like to applaud up here sometimes too, but we can't do that for public comment. So please be respectful of those rules, which are also stated in the agenda packet. Mr. Morissette, you're up next.
Thank you. And hello, everyone. My name is Mike, and like Steve, my wife and I have lived in Buckingham Woods subdivision for 28 years and have raised and educated our 2 daughters. Troy is a great city, and we live in a wonderful neighborhood with great neighbors that are friendly and truly care about each other, as evidenced by their attendance here this evening. Just last Monday, I woke to the fact that our lawn and across the street were marked for electric, water, and cable lines. I inquired with a few neighbors as to what this was for and found no explanation. In the afternoon, I called Troy Engineering and spoke with Antonio, who said Verizon would be installing a 5G pole in a week or 2 on the public easement. Informing our neighbors, we were in bewilderment that we were not informed and confused as to why this was going into the middle of our subdivision. Rebecca from City Council and a resident of our neighborhood met with us on Wednesday evening, and she too was surprised to learn this was going into the same subdivision. High concern was spreading throughout our neighborhood, and on Friday evening, both Rebecca and Dave took their time to meet with our neighbors, but had little new information and defended the city based on Act 365 passed in 2018. On Sunday, I was wondering what these new 5 poles look like, and went into the Verizon website and saw that there was heavy 5G penetration in the Maple and Coolidge area. I thought, that's just 7 blocks away from my home. So I rode my bike to investigate and found 2 5G poles on Maple and 2 poles on Maple and 2 on Coolidge that were either part of an existing wood telephone pole or new wood poles. Each pole had a small box with the name Verizon on it, about 12 feet high. Then at the very top of the 40-foot pole, there were 3 white speaker-like boxes about this size and very thin. And just below, there was a warning label attached to the pole that looked like this. And I'd like to show everyone. And then also, Mayor, I'll be having the 3 minutes of my wife. That's okay.
Well, go ahead.
Okay. And then this was the symbol that's the top, almost at the very top of the 40-foot pole. And this is an international radiation hazard symbol.
Mr. Morissette, I ask that you present to us, not to the audience. Those are part of our rules. Understandable.
I'm sorry.
Thank you.
And and I think everyone knows what this symbol represents. Radiation, danger, warning, health risks, and lower property values. The Troy citizens have no power to do anything about this, but we believe the city of Troy, with vast resources, can make a difference by reasoning with Verizon and Telecad Wireless Company that made the site plan for Verizon nearly a year ago at this particular location to have the installation immediately suspended and revise the site plan to have this 5G equipment installed about 4 blocks away on existing telephone poles on Coolidge. Am I good?
I'm waiting for a period. So
Okay.
finish that sentence and then I'll talk to you for just a sec. Go ahead.
Between Big Beaver and Maple, or in the commercial area north of Gulfview Drive. All
Okay.
we can do is,
Okay. So your 3 minutes is up. Your wife, Mrs. Morissette, has signed up next. I'll be quite frank. I'm not sure our rules typically don't allow for you to yield your time to somebody else. Can we do that by consensus of council? Or
You could suspend the rules, or you could ask if there is consensus to allow him to continue on and finish.
yeah. Okay, let's do. Is there consensus? Good. Just making sure. Please continue. Sorry, I want to make sure that we do things right.
and
That's all.
thank you. So all we can do as citizens is to request Troy to immediately remove this installation from happening in our neighborhood and place in a more socially conscious location. This is a classic tale of David and Goliath. We, the Troy citizens, are the Davids and personally cannot force relocation that is impending. A marginal city would not support its Davids and would stand by Act 365. But a truly great city would work with Telecad Wireless and Verizon to relocate this equipment in an area that preserves Verizon's technology and customer base, and at the same time preserves the safety and concerns of us Davids. We believe Troy will want to maintain its status as a truly great city and support us. This case is extremely urgent and timely. Please keep us informed of the next developments, and certainly thank you for all of your time and consideration.
Thank you, Mr. Morissette, and thank you for your demeanor and respectful tone. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, just so I'm clear, Ms. Morissette, you're good? All right. Next on the list is Ellen Strom. Good evening.
Hello, good evening. My name is Ellen Strom. I also have 3 daughters that attend Schroeder Elementary, and I've resided in the Buckingham Woods 1 district for about 10 years now. And this is my first city council meeting, and so that's how much this really means to me. I just found out about this 5G last week, and I'm not one to be always so vocal, but I am not one to go along with the flow. Being involved with all of our activities in our neighborhood over the years, whether it's a parade in our community or just a donut free-for-all, all the kids, this is an area where we have a lot of kids. And I'm going to tell you something that shouldn't wow you, but it really boils down to just basic terms and concepts and, you know, peer-reviewed published science showing the effects of this radiation: fatigue, headaches, sleep problems, anxiety, ringing in ears, heart problems, learning, memory disorders, increased cancer risk. Children and the ill and the elderly are more vulnerable. Not only is it just a safe term of having it there, I understand that I'm going against the inevitable, that we are going to have this. That's not the issue. The issue is being right in the middle of the center where we have our fun. You know, having our kids, as someone stated earlier, not being up in the air, but being lower, and a caution sign, and that's what our kids are rolling their bikes around. It just doesn't make much sense to me. When we don't live too far from an open area across Gulfview, we're not saying that I want it placed there, but there's a lot of other areas that we could consider. I understand this goes back to 2018, you know, and I understand there's not necessarily a lot that Troy can do, but I do want to make it a point that in the future, not only our area, but other citizens in the city of Troy are notified earlier so that they can voice their opinion too, and make sure that they can come here and express the importance of this for not only the families, but the elderly. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Strom. Next up on the list is Nancy Randall.
Good evening.
Good evening. My name is Nancy Randall.
I live in the Foxhall subdivision. We've lived there since 2001. And I'm here to address the I75 noise issue. I'm sure that you have all heard a lot about it. We've all heard a lot about it. We've all read about a lot about it. Some of us hear more about it than others. And I wish I could use my 3 minutes, not so much to speak, but to play a recording for you of what the noise sounds like, both outside of our home and inside of our home. We are not safe from that noise inside of our home as well. Even though we have double pane windows, who knew we should have gotten triple pane? And I don't know if that would have helped or not. But it used to be that we could relax outside, enjoy conversation. You can still enjoy conversation there, but it has to be at a much higher level of speaking. I know that for many people who travel I-75, it's made it much easier, but for those of us who live there and have to listen to the noise every day, it has become a real burden. As I said, we've been there for 20 years. My husband and I enjoy gardening. We used to enjoy hearing the birds when we were gardening. Some days we can still hear them, but most days we hear the traffic noise instead. And if we're both outside together, some days we really have to speak loud to each other to be heard. It was said that at the beginning, residents would have some impact as to what the plantings would be. Unfortunately, we were not allowed to, not allowed is not the right word, we didn't meet the requirements to get a wall. I understand that. However, the south side of the freeway did meet the requirements because there you have apartment buildings, the population density is greater. Those of us on the north side have a little larger lots that we paid for. Therefore, we pay higher taxes for those lots, and yet we are not getting the same consideration as far as our daily comfort. Also, our home property values have gone down because of that. So not only do we not enjoy living there as much, we won't get the benefit if and when we choose to sell our homes. Again, I know that there's a gentleman in our subdivision, Dave Blake, who has done a lot to try and resolve this issue and work with the people. The last contact he had, we were told that as far as plantings, sure, we could make suggestions, but decisions have already been made and the budget is gone. So that means, why bother? Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Randall. Just as a quick side note, we're listening, our rules set up where we respond if we care to at the end of all the public comments. So please don't think we're just listening to you and ignoring you, but we speak at the end, if at all. So just understand that. I should have said that at the beginning. Next up is William Gelder.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I've got the same complaint as the lady before me. I live in the subdivision that's just south of Long Lake, and I am west of Livernois. So I get a little bit different approach because 75 kind of S's around there. And with the prevailing westerly winds, we get a lot of noise a lot of the time. I've brought this up with my neighbor, and I've had some other neighbors, talk to me about the noise, that it's louder than it's been before. And I mean, it certainly has. I like to work outside like the lady before me, and I spend most of my weekends out making my yard as nice as I can. I've even built a waterfall with a pond for my wife, but anymore, if the noise is too loud, you can't even hear the waterfall in the pond anymore. So, and I really do enjoy being outside. As far as from the windows in the bedroom, I can tell which way the wind's blowing when I'm laying in bed at night. So I can tell if it's coming from the north or the south. Either I get noise or I don't get noise. Now, I know that they've put up some walls. I don't know that walls are really going to be the solution, especially the walls that are there now, because they're just flat. I believe this noise is just bouncing off of these walls, going up and going whichever way the wind's going. I have seen walls in other places that are kind of waffly. I think it's more to deflect some of the noise, but I don't even know if that's the answer. What I do think would be a better answer, and maybe cheaper, but I'm not sure, because you've already got the concrete down. Concrete's very noisy. Some concrete's more noisy than others. But I think if you put blacktop through residential areas, this would help quiet down the noise a whole lot. And, you know, I know the blacktop maybe doesn't last as long, but it's easier to take up and easier to lay back down than it is to do these cement roads that we have. So that's really about all I got. I mean, I love Troy. I love my neighborhood, and I love being out in my yard, but right now it's really, really hard. I mean, some days, well, if the wind's blowing from the east or the south, I'm okay, you know, but basically we've got that westerly wind, and it just, you know, when I walk the neighborhood, it's noisier in some areas than others. So anyways, thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Gelder. Appreciate your time this evening. Next up is Lorraine Scussel.
Good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Lorraine Scussel, and I live at 6464 Crabapple. My subdivision is just north of Firefighters Park, and it seems as if the noise has quadrupled over the last couple years. My point, and I agree with everybody else so far today, is that the two HOV lanes, one on each side, are not even open. Unemployment, and you know, most everyone is not back at work yet, so I just expect that the noise is going to get worse and worse as time goes on. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is Michael Taglione. All right. Thank you, Mr. Taglione. Next up is Mike Latity.
Thank you for having me tonight. I live in Foxhall. I think I live at ground zero on the I75 noise problem. I live at the corner where the retention pond ends, the west corner of that, and Square Lake Road. So I sent all of you a letter back in September it was actually a letter that I sent to Paul Adjuba last September about this whole thing. And unfortunately, I know maybe too much about this stuff, but I do know that there's a number of things that seem like we've been misled here a lot. So I'm hopeful that we can not just give you lip service tonight, that something can actually happen, because otherwise, preaching to the choir here. We should not roll over on this. I've seen too many situations where this is the right kind of thing have happened, and also the wrong kind of things. I went to the meeting, and if you all have this letter from September, please go through it, because all the details about the fact that the difference between the two bids and the two projects, two contractors, was $16 million. They saved $16 million, and the final bid was $58 million, I'm sorry, less than they had budgeted for the job, yet they walked away. They created a very significant, I mean, the lady, Nancy, was so nice. I'm not nice about this. This is ridiculous. This should not be allowed. If any of us created any kind of environmental impact like this, we'd either be in jail. By saying it costs too much to fix it, are you kidding me? It's irritating. But one of the things that happened is that people are at the meeting, the public meeting that went on some time ago, we had to press them for the information. And the only way we were able to do that is because I read their study before I went to the meeting. So There's a couple things that are scaring me here because I'm going to run out of time. Can I have my wife's minute? No, just kidding.
Did she sign up?
No, darn it. There's a couple things, if you get past my letter, that's good. I hope you would. Did you get Paul Edgeba's letter? He says, well, thank you very much, and we're very concerned. He gave the same answer to me that he gave to you. So it was a canned thing, no offense to attorneys, but he said the right thing, for them anyway. But there's information in there. It says thanks, but the state of Michigan gets the rest of that money. So thank you very much. But there's a couple things that are really important I hope you understand. Did they ever do a second study after the wall was built? No. They didn't verify that their assumptions in their study was correct. Because they're projecting that noise. They're not measuring it. They're calibrating a model that forecasts it. Okay? That's what goes on there.
Mr. Levity, your 3 minutes is up. Can you finish in 1 more minute?
Yes.
Can I get consensus for 1 more minute?
Yeah.
All right, go ahead. 1 minute.
Let's just run down a couple of things. Feasibility test. The feasibility of the wall, or the protection of the wall, is interesting. What kind of a feasibility test did they run for the site berm that they built? Do you know why that's there? Was that to keep the people in the neighborhood so they don't have to see the cars? That wasn't the impact. The noise is the impact. What are you doing building that? Well, I can tell you why they built that. They were looking for help to help the contractor put dirt someplace. So they put it in a lot of places, but they couldn't build a noise berm. Why'd they do that? FHWA allows them to build a site berm, but not a noise berm? I had trouble with that. In the letter, there's information about how much extra it would have cost either the residents or the city, or both, to pay the difference between what FHWA would have paid for. In other words, to make the benefit cost ratio work. It's in there, right?
That's your time, Mr. Levity.
Oh.
I know. I'm certain you'll email us again, and we'll talk
can I send all of you a nice long email about
Please
6
do.
or 7 more points?
Please.
I'd like to know, one of the big things is we would all like to know where this is going.
We'll talk about it as best we can.
Good, thank you very much.
Thank you. Next up is Chris Steele. Good evening.
Good evening. My name's Chris Steele. I'm a 23-year resident of Beech Forest, so on the other side of Coolidge from most of the other residents. So we saw on the Nextdoor app that a number of folks would be coming in and talking this today. You may recall we met in Zoom, I think last fall, and gave you a very detailed presentation about what our assessment and impact to Beech Forest, Hickory Heights, and Middlesex, which are the subdivisions to the west of Coolidge. So really my purpose here today is just to come up. I was sent in with a show of support to our neighbors on the other side, just to indicate that the issue is pervasive across that stretch of freeway. I do agree with the gentleman that was ahead of me that the study that MDOT did, like we previously talked about, that model does not represent reality, both the reality right now and it's going to get worse when traffic picks up. So that's all I've got.
Thank you, Mr. Steele.
Okay, thanks.
Next up is Michael Shea.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I'm Michael Shea. I've been living in Troy since 2006. I'm vice president of the Troy Meadows Homeowners Association, just north of here, but south of Wattles. So we are ground zero for I-75. And if you look at it, there are quite a few of the other sectors that have gotten the wall. And I just wanted to give you a heads up on one of the biggest requests I think we have for you is if you could help us with emphasizing a new sound study. That's probably the biggest thing we could ask for. A couple of the things that we've already done, I sent an email out to MDOT, and prior to that I sent it to our representative, Padme, which eventually she shared it with the governor's office too. But the biggest things we were looking at was just like we heard, the quality of the noise study, it was performed in 2018. We don't know if it was accurate. Obviously, you're going to hear from a lot of people here that say the sound is worse, and that's what's reality. So we really, we didn't really trust the sound study. The resultant of the road construction has obviously resulted in heavier traffic. It's probably good for the economy, but it's also bad for our noise, you know. The MDOT choice of having sound barrier walls on every side of our sector is causing sound to bounce. We believe it's sound bouncing off of the other side. So on the other side of I75, you got larger sound, so our neighbors are constantly complaining about the higher sound there. Although they say they don't have a sound barrier in front of the cemetery, they do have, it did stretch around there, that's kind of comical. 3/4 sections of wattles and I-75 did receive a wall, so there were some exceptions made that we knew of the past. And the biggest thing we're looking for is the value, the assessment value of our homes. Not necessarily just now, but in the future. We're thinking by the fall, things will be a little bit back to normal. There'll be a lot more traffic. It's already bad now, but it's probably going to be worse in the fall and obviously next year. We did send an email to MDOT. The response was really insufficient. All we asked for was, can you redo a sound study, a fair sound study, so that take into account all the different factors, all the variables that during time of day or all those different factors. And they kind of blew it off. They didn't really say anything about it. So if we had the strength of the city of Troy behind us, that would be a really beneficial thing for us. And it would be, you know, you're not going to get the budget right away, but who knows? If there's an infrastructure bill happening, you might be able to slip in there. So you got to just be able to voice the concerns for everybody. We really would appreciate that.
Thank you. Appreciate your time very much. Thank you. Next up is Richard Dimaggio.
This is my first council meeting. So I thought you guys were going to speak on it first and then you'd have public comment, but I guess that's not the way it works. I know that I've emailed you before about the issues. I'm in Hickory Heights, Woods North. Actually owned the Arlen's house that the street was named after when it was on 10 acres, built in 1950. And so I moved in a couple years before the freeway was, the new, renovations were going on. And here's my points, is that the 2015 sound study that was done on an old asphalt road, okay? And when the wind blows, you can hear it for a quarter of a mile. I walk in the subdivision, I can hear it. Those people hear almost what I hear, which the house across the street backs up to Arlen, okay? The thick brush was removed, as well as everyone knows here, and then the brush was hacked again by the city of Troy last summer and then tried to be fixed, but it wasn't. The screeching tires on the cement there's high-speed racing now on that stretch over there between Crooks and Square Lake at all hours of the night. Many first responders, including my wife, and a large amount of doctors that live in Beach Forest, I can't believe we can let this happen. With the amount of tax money that's paid in those subdivisions, to not be able to construct something that the city can be proud of and help their residents. I don't think there's any significance to the benefactors deal with this, each person, what they calculated MDOT. So MDOT's not gonna really do anything for the city of Troy, in my mind, and I think it's up to you guys to do something. That's it, thanks.
Thank you, Mr. Dimaggio. Next up is Jason Kong.
Good evening, council members. Thanks for listening and your time. I'm a resident of Buckingham Woods, and I just wanted to bring up the 5G Verizon pole and the concern that a lot of the residents have there. And I wanted to emphasize the fact that I think there's just a really common sense solution to it. Just 80 Steps Way is an area that I think would bring a lot of peace of mind to people if the pole was constructed there. It doesn't seem like it would make it any worse and less effective for the 5G pole in terms of what it needs to do. And it just seemed like one of those things where if this good solution didn't get brought up, that things would just kind of roll along and somebody wouldn't even realize that there was a better situation. So please consider it. I know sometimes that the laws as written don't require that anything has to be done, but I think when laws get in the way of good solutions or common sense solutions, then that's not in the spirit of a lot of what those things are meant to do. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kong. Next up is John Zapatowski.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and council members. I appreciate you being here, and especially how you opened the meeting, that we would have a dialogue. I want to say that the last time I was in a council chamber was when I was a Boy Scout working on my citizenship merit badge. So I'm just happy to see the Scouts are still doing good things for our communities. And that's the whole theme that I keep hearing here tonight, is that we have strong neighborhoods. Our neighbors are our friends. You go for a walk. Your walk may take a little bit longer because you may stop a couple times to talk with your neighbors. Our homes are our big investment. They're where we're raising our families. And everybody here is concerned about their community, their home, the value of that home. It's our significant investment. And the 5G pole that's being proposed to be put in is the same distance from where I am to the door. And that's how close that pole is to the homes of my neighbors. In addition, the area that it's being proposed in, we actually use this for our ice cream social for our neighborhood. It's used for the Halloween parade, the bike parade. We're very fortunate. Our neighborhood keeps active because we believe by knowing our neighbors, we create strong communities, and those strong communities create strong cities, and those strong cities create what we have here. So again, I like to thank you for listening to me and taking into consideration the concerns of my neighbors, and not only my immediate neighbors, but all the neighbors who live in the city of Troy, because these 5G poles are going to be put up all over the place. And I'd like to just leave the last thought with you. If this was your home that we are talking about tonight, and that pole was from where I'm standing to the door, I have a feeling that each one of you would be standing right where I am tonight. So thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Zapatowski. Next up is Fnu Suresh.
Good evening, Mayor and all the council members. Thank you for giving an opportunity to speak. I'm just echoing the same concerns of what we have with the I-75. I'm right at between Crooks and College, facing Square Lake. My backyard faces Square Lake. I am on Falcon Drive. So there's a lot of noise, not just when you sit in the patio or something, but just with the door closed inside. There's a lot of noise because of the pandemic now, the children are studying from home. It becomes a lot of disturbance for them. So they literally, my children go to the basement to study so that they get less noise when they're on Zoom calls with this tri-school district. Even I'm also working from home for the past 1 year, 1.5, I would say from last February. I still have, even with my sound reducing headphones, sometimes my clients say they still get an echo. So I just want help from you guys to make sure that our community has less noise and we're a much safer place we can live. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Suresh. Next signed up is James Andrews.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, council members. My name is James Andrews. I live on Crabapple, directly behind the ponds at Firefighters Park. You have the letter I sent to you and members of the state representatives and MDOT. I think it's part of the agenda you have here with discussions. So what I wanted to talk about, since you know I support all people that have spoken about the concerns. So I thought, okay, there's a wall on the north side and there's not a wall on the south side. So yesterday and today I took my smartphone with a sound meter on it and I wanted to see what the sound differences were. So I went to Fleetwood Drive, which is the drive that's just south and parallels I-75. And I'm taking a measuring point about 300 yards east of Coolidge. So on Fleetwood Drive, I measured for a 10-minute occurrence what the sound levels were. Then I went over onto this north side, right at the corner of Hearthside Drive, where it meets I-75, or the Square Lake, and took the same readings. You're welcome to have a copy of that. My main point here is that when you look at what the dB levels, which is a measurement of sound pressures, between the north and the south, it was about, during Sunday's 1 o'clock time frame, it was about 14 decibels. During rush hour this morning, I was there about 7:30, and it's, I'll call it 14 again. One was 13.6, one was 14.2. And the point I want to leave with you is that with sound pressure measurements, 10 dB is a doubling of the perceived sound level. So what your ear hears with every 10 decibels of increase is double the sound level. So we're hearing, especially the people that are right by Square Lake, at least twice, if not 3 times, the sound level that the north side is getting. And they're getting more noise, I'm sure, than they had before the reconstruction. So I support all that has been said, and you're welcome to have my little informal study if you wanted to have a copy of it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate that. If you want to email that to us, please do. Thank you. Next up is Dudley Wellington.
Good evening, everyone.
Good evening.
So I'll keep this simple. I'm kind of like a couple other people. This is the first council meeting I've ever been at. I have been in the Buckingham Woods, I guess, subdivision for about 7 months. I caught wind of this 5G pole, which I personally just don't quite understand how it got to this point with no one kind of getting a heads up on it. There are a lot of kids. I have a 13-year-old. And there's a elementary school there. So I'm just, from the standpoint of the council, I know you guys, do what's best for the city and stuff like that, but I don't understand with all the commercial property out there, Kmart, Somerset, golf course, why it's not positioned over there. So just trying to get some answers and just, voicing my opinion and concern for my community. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that. Next up is Anthony Butcher.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to me. Anthony Butcher. I'm from Troy Meadows subdivision. I've been there 20 years, and I'm currently the president of the Homeowners Association as well. And I'm here to talk about the sound and the noise that's increased since the I-75 construction. Walls were built opposite our subdivision along 75 and to the north on both sides. So the noise is so much louder now. And I guess really all I can do is ask for support from the city to get a new sound study done by the state. We've asked MDOT about it. They said, sorry, there's nothing we can do at this point. You don't meet the criteria to even get a wall. So if you could help us with getting either MDOT to perform another sound study or a third-party company maybe to do it as well. There's companies that can do that I've contacted as well. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next up is Dale Williams. All right. That leaves Eunice Dorland. All right. Larry Donabedian. Is this something I said? Next up is Sandra Sands. Peer pressure. Now there's too much pressure, I know.
Very nervous. Okay, I've lived in Troy 37 years. We are sadly moving to North Carolina, but I do want to just interject that I was talking to one of my neighbors that putting our house up for sale recently, this noise factor did play into our sale of our house. We did have one rejection because of the noise level. So I back up to Firefighters Park also, and our bedroom window is in the back there, and in the summertime I have to close them because it's too noisy. That's all I want to say, and I'm going to miss Troy.
Thank you. Good luck in North Carolina.
Thank you.
Okay, next up is Bapinder Puri.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, council members. I've heard about this meeting as well on the next door, and wanted to bring up the concerns about the I75 noise. So I live in Carlson Park subdivision, right on 18 Mile in Livernois area, and I moved there back in 2000. At that point in time, of course, everything was very quiet. And for the past couple of years, it's when the construction started, actually, what was it, last summer or so, we started hearing the noise, especially when people were sent home from the pandemic and started to work from home. Actually, I was working off my deck because it's just beautiful out there, but I heard the noise, and it's very pervasive. All my neighbors complain about it. We don't know what to do about it, but we complain about it. We hear it every day, and my wife and I are, once we have two kids. One has gone through Troy High School, the other one is a junior, and then after she graduates, maybe we will consider moving out of Troy and to a locale that's quieter, possibly Rochester Hills. So I really think this is a big issue that I'm sure you're aware of, and everybody's expressed their views on it. And in terms of the studies, I'm an engineer. It's basically every 3 dBs of increase is the ear can perceive a 3 dB increase. And so if you have, let's say 18 dBs increase in noise, you're obviously going to be hearing that. The human ear can detect that. So what I would say is that in terms of a noise study, a proper noise study be done in terms of correlating the analysis to the real world noise level and understanding, okay, why is there a difference and what assumptions were made and what assumptions could be incorrect, and then from there you can go along and figure out a solution. But until you have a better understanding, throwing things at it may not be the best use of monies. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Puri. Appreciate that. All right, next up is Teague Keating.
It is Ty, not T. It's my mother's maiden name, so I'm sticking up for her. I'm one of 8 children. I've been in the Troy school district for 31 years. I have 4 daughters. I've got one in college still, 2 married, one that just finished college. Anyway, great neighborhood. I'm right behind Chrysler Lake Church, formerly, what was the name of the? St. Allen's, right, thank you. So I have a couple questions that I just wanted to pose. Maybe these have been addressed, I do not know, but does Verizon get immunity from any health side effects from the residents nearby to the 5G tower? Number 2, does the homeowners nearest to the tower get any compensation since there is greater risk from an insurance perspective, home insurance that is? And number 3, can the homeowners of the nearby neighborhoods request lower assessment of taxes, assuming this tower is completed? Those are my questions. I can't imagine that there isn't a location where it would not affect directly the homes that it's going to be built nearby, but there are, I'm sure, other spots near there within a 100-foot radius, I'll put a 100-yard radius, that could probably not offend as many people by being right in the neighborhood where we have our social gatherings. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Keating. That concludes those that have signed up that are present in the chambers today. City Clerk Dixon, it's my understanding we have some emails and or voicemails submitted as well.
Yes, Mayor, first we have one person that's attending on Zoom. So if that person would like to speak on public comment, please raise your hand on Zoom. Okay. We did have one voicemail, but I believe that resident already spoke in person here. So we have 2 additional emails. The first comment is from Michael Willis. Good news for the future of recycling programs. CNBC News gave good coverage for Pure Cycle Technologies' industrial system, mentioned that single-use plastics will be a thing of the past. Next comment is from Kathleen O'Loughlin. It has never been more important than now to have a convention of states. Therefore, members of the Michigan Region 4 COS team will hold a town hall and would be honored if all or any of your members would join us Thursday, August 19th, 2021, from 6:45 to 8 p.m. at the Royal Oak Senior Center. COS representatives will present information to the community about the mission and goal of Convention of States. The mission is to build an engaged army of self-governing grassroots activists for the purpose of calling the first ever Article 5 Convention of States to stop federal overreach and return power to the people. We look forward to seeing you there for a lively, respectful community conversation. Please contact Kathleen to RSVP for Liberty. And that is all the comments.
Thank you, City Clerk Dixon. That concludes those who have submitted comment electronically for public comment and those who have spoken in person, obviously. Next up is an opportunity for City Council or City Administration to respond and reply to public comment, as I said we'd do. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Miller here in a second, I think, but I guess I've never been struck by or more by the issues coming at us that relate to things that our state government has done to us. I'm going to start with that because this is it's very frustrating to sit in this seat as it is for all of you in your homes and to think, okay, well, what do I do here and what can I do? So we'll talk a little bit about that as best we can, I'm assuming. But first, I want to turn it over to City Manager Miller. I understand that you did have some, or your staff spoke with Verizon Wireless today, and if you could just give a little update on that, I think that would be beneficial to start.
I have a few
and then,
clarifications,
please,
and
yes.
I think Ms. Bloom might want to speak also. But first, I want to sympathize with everyone because the position we're being put in is by the state of Michigan. There's a trend of the state of Michigan preempting local control, and obviously the I75 is a MDOT project. So first of all, I'm going to talk a little bit about the 5G. I just want to clarify that it is not on Mr. Bloom's property. The proposed location is in a city public rights-of-way dedicated for a road. Second, a long time ago, the FCC, I have a long career of working with the cellular community and a long history that as it evolved. And the FCC has ruled that we cannot regulate it based upon health concerns. And that's like 25, 30 years old. And obviously, the 2008 legislation, which preempts our local control, was mentioned today. But our city engineer did contact Verizon and the representatives, and they're willing to meet with us out on the site. I personally don't know the technical requirements for the placement of that, but we'll walk with their engineers and see what we can do. And just really quick, just to talk a little bit about how this is permitted is much different than a cellular tower. Because they're permitted by state law to go right into our right-of-way, we utilize our right-of-way process, and there really is not a lot of discretion in that process. It's very ministerial in that we're just looking that our utilities are not impacted by the location of the 5G tower. And then to move, and just really quick, I want to move really quick to I-75. Once again, I sympathize. I mean, from where we sit, we just wish MDOT put a wall from 14 Mile to Adams Road, but they didn't. I personally have worked with Senator Peters' office. I'm working very closely with Congresswoman Haley Stevens, and also State Rep Padma Kupa and State Senator Mallory McMorrow. I know that Congresswoman Stevens is pretty active and wants to help out where we can, and we're going to see what we can do. The rebuild of I-75 is like a once in 50-year project. So I don't know how to get MDOT to put those walls up. I really don't. I think that's a summary of everything I had, and I don't know if Ms. Bloom, you have anything you want to say?
Mayor, if I may just add to that, just as far as the 5G towers, I want to assure our residents that we did everything that we could do before this law went in place to try and fight against it. We are also a member of ProTech. We pay a dues to ProTech. We knew that this was going to cause angst, and we were very unhappy with the removal of local control. So we have done everything. We did everything in our power to keep the law from going into place, but unfortunately, we are stuck with this law. It's the state of Michigan and then also the FCC, and Mr. Miller has previously indicated that health concerns, and I know that that was what was brought up by a lot of the members of the public here. We cannot make any decision based on a health concern. The FCC has absolutely preempted our local municipalities from taking any action based on health concerns. So that is actually at the federal level. Also, the state level has removed our local control for that. So I just wanted to make those statements.
Thank you, City Attorney Bloom, and thank you, City Manager Miller. I'm certain Council would like to say a few things. I'm going to start for a second, just to pick up a little bit where Mark left off on both issues, actually. I'm going to start with the sound wall because it's been kind of a longer process for me personally. And City Manager Miller is absolutely right. I can confirm how closely he's been working with our state and federal representatives to try to come up with something to help. We've asked, Council has asked city management, is there city-owned land that we could, even if we wanted to fund a wall ourselves, would that do that? The answer is no, unfortunately. There's not city-owned land that is continuous enough that would allow for something like that, regardless of the cost associated with that. We are frustrated. I guess I should speak for myself only. I'm very frustrated, as many of you are, as it relates to I-75. I live about a half a mile north of I-75, across from Marland Way. So that side of it, that part of the city. And I hear the increase in noise. I can't imagine if I lived over closer to Square Lake, a little further east. I know how bad it is, and it's sickening and not something that is any of us are taking lightly. Unfortunately, I know many of us have reached out to the different representatives at the state level, at the federal level, and they're working on it at certain times in different ways too. I know City Manager Miller and I are working with Congresswoman Stevens' office to put together a meeting with MDOT and the state and federal representatives to try to come up with something. The latest push from you residents seems to be to ask for another sound study. I think that's a great idea. I understand that it's not always, it's so outside of what MDOT does that it's like moving a mountain, David and Goliath style, pushing up a hill, basically, because it's just not their custom and practice. But I will continue to fight and push for that and do what I can from my seat in that regard. Rebecca, your neighborhood, the 5G pole issue, again, I was on council when this law went into effect, a couple of us were, and it's again frustrating to have the state government take away more and more power from us as they do things. I think this was even a lame duck law that they passed in a lame duck session, and you wonder about why it happens and everything. And I understand the idea of set an example, City of Troy, do something, and we have to be very cautious of what we do to encourage litigation, to get in the way of what Verizon Wireless and the other cell companies have a legal right to do based on state law right now. Our fiduciary duty, our responsibility to the residents in the City of Troy, isn't best served when we are going against state law. I'm sure the city attorney would would nod her head yes, and that is the struggle that I face. I mean, I think the law is bad. I think that it could be greatly improved, and I have no problem saying so. I think that it shouldn't work like this. Until we can get somebody to change that law, unfortunately, it does work like this. So I'm thankful that city management did reach out to Verizon today and started a conversation with them, and it sounds like there's at least something that can come from that. I think many of you probably know far more about 5G poles and how the process works than any of us do, maybe at this point. Maybe Councilmember Hamilton knows, because he tends to research these things a lot. But I'm certain that city management will do a great job representing us when they do meet with Verizon. And I don't know, certainly there's no promises, but that conversation to happen, I think, is a good first step. Let me give an opportunity to others on council to speak before I probably come up with something else. But who would like to? Councilmember Chamberlain-Crango.
Thank you. Mayor, happy to go next. First of all, to my neighborhood, thank you for being here. Thank you for coming. And I want to start by thanking Lori and Mike Morissette, who knocked on my door a week ago, probably around this time, literally. And I thought it was my husband, so I had my son go grab it. And you shared this news, and I was stunned. I had no idea. I knew nothing about 5G poles a week ago at this time. But right away, I went to work for you all. I sent a message that evening to our city manager. The next day, we had the permit, at least, to see what had gone through engineering. Sent it to you all. We had a conversation on Wednesday, and consistently all week long, trying to engage with city management, city administration, and trying to learn and to listen to what you all had to say. And I am stunned. I am stunned that something like this can happen and our neighborhood cannot know. And I am in a position here, and I had no idea. And to be clear as well, this area and our neighborhood, I always say I chose Troy for its amazing neighborhoods. In our neighborhood, exactly because I can walk to work. I walk to work, I bike to work. It's right on Big Beaver. When my son, in his first year, when he was born, my husband worked from home and literally would stroll him every single day through that cut through, literally crossing from that dead end road across that grass, that's where we walk, where that pole's gonna go, onto that sidewalk to my place of work where I could nurse in the parking lot for over a year. We did that every day, so I know that cut through. I know it like nothing else. My family knows. So I am stunned. I think there's something that, there's a lot I've learned that we do have limited power. I thank city management for reaching out and having a conversation with Verizon. My understanding is they are open to having a conversation about options. I know that is no guarantee, but I think by you all being here, I think that does say something. There is a memo, it just came out, just hot off the press, that I can share with you all in the neighborhood that I will forward. And it does have a list of how many of these new sorts of utility poles that we have, as well as those that are on existing utility poles. And there's a total of 24. And we know this technology because we have phones. We know what's happening. But if you do look at this list, and as soon as I got this, I spent my time researching these. I've actually driven out before the meeting, had a chance to look at, took photos of these. And I do have to say, from this list, as far as I can see, not a single one is buried deep in a neighborhood like ours. So that is what is wrong with this. And I know that's why you're here tonight. Not a single one of these is buried deep in a neighborhood. And that is problematic. And that is a question I would ask Verizon that I would love an answer to. But what I do want to speak to, and what I can, and the limited power on this matter that we have here, and I feel I have, is the one thing I've brought to city management, and I'd like to bring to my council colleagues, is there any way we can pursue within our city that we could notify residents as soon as a permit lands in our engineering department? And I know that does not mean anything can be changed, but just for residents to know. And that's my background. That's why I ran for this position. My background is all about resident engagement. It's all about making sure residents know what is happening, that you're not out of the loop, and myself, that I'm not out of the loop as someone being in public service. And so that's something I do want to bring to the table, if there is consensus, that we could at least explore what would that mean for city staff to be able to inform residents. Because this memo I'm going to share with you there's another one. I want to be fully transparent, and this is now public knowledge, at 3077 Gloucester. That's Christ-Our Light. And I drove by there to get to here. There's a marking out there as well. So I think just making sure residents as well as organizations just know. I think that's just a start for them to know. And of course, if it was up to me, these would be in commercial, industrial areas, but I know that we don't have control over that. But still, I think we all have a right just to know, right? I think that that's important. And the other thing is, for us to explore as a council body, if there's a way for us to lobby Lansing around potential changes to this legislation, things that could give us as a city at least a little more wiggle room, at least something to have some say where this may go. And so that's something else, if we are open to this as a council body, and working with city administration to be able to craft some sort of resolution that we could send a clear message that this is how we stand. Because I am grateful in our great city that our state representative at the time, Martin Harliak, he did not vote for this. So we have had some strong leadership in saying no to Act 365 Lansing. So those are the two things I put before you, but just to say, I hear you, I'm with you. I've always said, this is us, this is our neighborhood, this is Troy's neighborhood, and I believe it is a truly great neighborhood. And I've seen city administration stood up for us today and reached out to Verizon, so nothing's impossible. We can be that David with Goliath. I believe that's who we can be, so thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga. Councilmember Hamilton?
They covered a lot of what I was going to say, but I just want to thank everyone for meeting with me the other day. I know it was heated. I could feel your passion, and I understand, and it's justified. And Mayor Baker and Councilmember Chamberlain-Crainga covered so much. I was going to talk about, proposing that resolution just to have a unified voice. It doesn't have any, teeth, but it does send a message, and like everyone here today, it sends an important message. So we'll do what we can. And we did similar a few months ago on the I75 noise situation. We sent a resolution, and we'll keep working with our state and federal representatives on both issues and do what we can.
Thank you, Councilmember Hamilton. Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. First, I'll speak to the I-75 noise issue. When the trees started coming down, I think it was 2016 or 2017, to make way for the construction. I know because Councilwoman Hoderick would drive by it every day on the way to Chrysler. We started hearing from residents, they're cutting down our trees, what are they going to do? How are they going to make it better? We understand construction means interruption of our daily lives, but what can they do to make things better? We had MDOT in here a number of times. We had our city engineers come out, council meetings, or just work with our city trying to connect residents to them. And literally for years, we've been trying to move the ball with MDOT. I think Mr. Labate used the term misled in his comments. I think it was Mr. Labate. And to a certain extent, I feel that way too, because it seemed like 4 years ago, MDOT had made commitments of, well, we'll come back, maybe we'll do another assessment. We'll understand your concerns. We understand we took down old growth trees that were an effective sound wall. And here we are today, 4 years later, and we're still in the same position that we were, and hearing different reasons why something can't be done. And I can appreciate when federal dollars are used, which that's how MDOT was allocated. They're allocated federal funds. They got to follow federal rules. But I've said it before, and I'll say it again, our residents were harmed. Their biggest, most people's biggest investment of their lives is their home. And by no fault of their own, there was harm caused. And so I think this council is committed to continue to work with our legislature at the federal and at the state level to see what can be done. We've known that this issue was not going to go away. It's literally 4 years we've been talking about it. As you know, because it has been 4 years, change never comes easy or as fast as we'd like it. But just as recently as, I think it was December, Councilwoman Hodrick brought forward a resolution to December, sometime when there was snow on the ground, to continue to urge our state legislatures, to urge MDOT, to urge those that have the ability to affect change or to work with our federal partners who could affect change to do so. And it was unanimous. And it's not very often council will take measures like that. We are a nonpartisan body. We try to stay out of the politics of Lansing. We try to stay out of the politics of DC because we just want to manage our own city the way that our residents want us to run the city. That's what home rule is all about. And so it's frustrating, as Mayor Baker said, when the two biggest things that we're hearing at council comments tonight and public comment are things that are forced upon us and we have zero control over it. At best, we're on the fringe within the scope of influence. I think you're hearing comments that acknowledge that we will do what we can, even with our scope of influence, meager though it may be, to continue to advocate. And I will continue to remain hopeful that we can get some results because, as I said before, harm was done by no one's fault, other than what was put upon them. The 5G tower, another area where the state's legislation, in my view, was also hurried through a lame duck session and was not properly thought through, and it's frustrating as a home rule city to be taken out of the span of control when it comes to these towers. And certainly the FCC, that ruling about not being able to take health considerations into account is also frustrating. That's at a federal level. As City Attorney Bloom, when there was indications of this legislation coming through about 3 years ago, municipalities were nearly unanimously united in the being against this proposed legislation. And yet it passed, and here we are today. I do appreciate city management reaching out to Verizon. I actually I will give Verizon credit for even picking up the phone to talk to city management. They don't have to do so. So the fact that they're going to go out onto a site visit is encouraging, and as a person who tends to see the glasses half full, I am hopeful that there can be some sort of agreement made that's better than what was permitted and had to be permitted administratively. There were no options out of it. So as Councilwoman Chamberlain-Craig said, she's stunned something like this can happen. I've been on council long enough where I get less stunned by these sorts of things. But part of me is still stunned that these things can happen in Lansing, aren't necessarily realized until it hits home. So I have to say to this room full of people in council chambers, and it's been a while since I've seen the room full like this, and not just because of the pandemic, thank you for coming out. And I also encourage you stay engaged with what the city is doing on other things besides this. But I would also encourage you to stay engaged with what's going on at the state level. I think we all know what's going on at the federal level, but stay engaged with the state, because that's where some of this change is being forced upon us. And they need to hear from residents, not necessarily municipalities, for them to know what your opinion is and what you think of legislation that's pending, particularly in the lame duck sessions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Go ahead, Councilmember Hodder.
I just wanted to echo what they've said, and thank you for the time you spent. Several people, when they came to the microphone, expressed how nervous they were. One of these residents is actually leaving and took the time to come tonight. So you can tell that, this is a very caring community, and these are issues that before you even knew, that have kept me up at night thinking about them. And we did have a study session regarding 5G a while ago, and I know our city attorney, I know our rep at that time they were working hard to make sure that we did have more control, and that law passed anyway. The Michigan Municipal League that represents communities across the state was speaking loudly at the time, and so you didn't know it, but your concern had voices anticipating that you would not like what has happened in your neighborhood. So that fight happened. I think our current rep and current senator, they weren't in those positions at that time. Write to them, share the concerns. Can there be, that's where this law is. It's not here. It's kind of like the fireworks laws. We always get letters about, can you ban fireworks in Troy? Another noise issue, right? We can't. That there is a law in Lansing that our ordinance is as strict as it can be according to that fireworks law in Lansing. We've done it as strict as possible to represent residents, but we can't change it from here. So we can do resolute, but we're not the lawmakers. We have to follow the law here. Doesn't mean we like it. Doesn't mean we wouldn't like to just be able to do what you're asking us to do. We would, but there is a law, and I am grateful that there will be some dialogue. But it can feel like, well, why wasn't anybody paying attention to this, right? How did this happen? Was nobody watching? Yeah, we were, and we knew. And I think Councilwoman Abraham and I had a conversation Saturday. We knew this was going to happen. We knew. So I'm sorry that that's the case, but hopefully there'll be a positive outcome of this conversation. Regarding I-75, same thing, the night it was announced, it was at the State of the County. I think we were together at the State of the County address in Oakland County when Mr. Patterson, the then Oakland County executive, announced with great joy the expansion of I-75. And I remember thinking, what is that going to do? What is that going to feel like in our city? I knew I-75 needed work. I knew our bridges needed attention. And frankly, we should all be excited that that has happened. That is a good thing. It's a generational effort that needed to happen. but the widening was, alarm bells went off. And I knew then that at one point we would be sitting and thinking through some sort of an issue. Our city staff that is not our project. That's an MDOT project. But the ripple effect into this community has been huge, including the delaying of construction and road work on the north-south roads and even the east-west, because we knew when I-75 was shut down that we would need to be that pass-through city. So you have a city engineer who ripped up a 10-year plan at that time to adjust so traffic could still flow. There's so many little things that are the consequences of decisions outside our scope. This is MDOT's project, and I hear the noise as well from the highway. I know the cement is louder, just the type of cement used. There was one gentleman who talked about, oh, could we just build the wall ourselves? Well, it's right-of-way land. So, no, not consistently and contiguous to solve the problem.
Sir, Mr. Dimaggio, please, we can't have back and forth. Sorry.
If we could, you think we wouldn't want to fix that if we could do it effectively and by law? So where it should come from, if you want your city tax dollars going to a project that should be federally funded completely, I would want to exhaust that first. I support the second sound study because I think the first one, that was a projection, and the sound has to be, the decibel levels have to be different. We're all experiencing it. And again, though, it's not our project. It's not, we can give our representative and senator a call. We can communicate with MDOT again. I don't know if City Manager Miller can call and say, is there a way that you guys can do a second? I think you described it. We feel just like David as well. It's not like we can wave a magic wand and have them do it. So we'll continue to give voice. I do know our representatives and senators are hearing us, and we'll continue to talk to them. We gave voice with a resolution, so that weight was behind it for months now. I'm not happy that MDOT put it back on us, that it's our issue to look at and resolve on the part of the residents impacted. I'm really not happy with that. And I don't think any of us are. And so we will continue to have that dialogue to the best of our ability. We hear you, and we appreciate you taking the time to come talk to us on the record. Thank you.
Thank you. City Manager Miller, Councilmember Hoderick just asked about if you could call MDOT. Would you like, what would be the best, most effective tool for you? A resolution from us encouraging an additional sound study? What would you feel would give you the better leverage, if anything? Leverage might not be the right word, but a better tool. If you want to think about it, we can work on that. But
my honest answer is I really don't know, because this is such a unique thing, because you only do a major rebuild of a highway once every 50 years or so. I don't even think I need a resolution. I mean, I will, if you want me to do that, I'll do it. But I think we're continuing. We're actively trying to set up a meeting with Congresswoman Haley Stevens to try to get all the parties together involved and see if there's something we can do to try to move forward and get more walls.
Okay, well, I think you have consensus, I'm assuming, to continue in that vein.
Okay.
Obviously, if that's good for you for now, I mean,
yeah,
we need to have some sort of additional form of resolution at the next meeting. I'm sure we're open to that. All right. Councilmember Erickson-Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo a lot of the comments that have been made by the mayor and my fellow members of council. I agree with almost everything they said, with a slight exception. I'm going to disagree a little bit with Councilmember Hoderick. We are lawmakers in a sense, but we're lawmakers at the lowest level of the totem pole. There's this legal concept, and I know this might sound like legal mumbo jumbo to a lot of you, and it's called preemption. And what it means is when the federal government gets involved or Lansing gets involved, they can pretty much tell us how it's going to be, and we don't have the ability to write a contrary ordinance or pass a resolution that interferes with that. We have very limited ability to contradict what Washington and Lansing tell us how things are going to be. So, sorry, sir.
Mr. Dunn, please. Again, folks, this is not a back and forth. We have to follow the rules. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be a jerk about it, but we have rules for a reason, so please
Legal
follow them.
minds can disagree on these issues, absolutely. But the reality is that what I'm hearing, and I do thank all of you for coming out and speaking, but the reality is that this is a quality of life issue. I imagine that pretty much everybody in this room who, like me, moved to Troy purposefully did so because you wanted to have the quality of life that this city offers. One of the things that I continually hear from residents is how much they've loved living here, that it's been a great place to raise their children or to live their lives, and unfortunately we do have a lot of people who move away in retirement. We're working on those issues to make more options available for people to live here in their retirement. And I agree with those of you who say that how would we feel if we were living right next to the I75 Noise? How would we feel if we had a cell tower going up virtually in our backyard? Though, you know, it's not in your backyard, but it feels like it when it's right next door. And I absolutely agree with you. I would not be happy with that situation either. In fact, I had a bit of a heated debate. I'm going to kind of call out my husband a little bit. He spent many years working in the cellular industry, and we had this back and forth. It got really heated because he was like, well, people want to have great cell service, and that's what's happening. Verizon and the other cell service providers are creating basically, instead of these huge towers that we used to see, what we're seeing is kind of like a web of smaller cells, as they call them, small cells, to basically blanket the community so that we have this seamless coverage. And I told, this is where I got heated, I'm saying, I wouldn't care if that thing is my backyard. I mean, yeah, I want great cell service too, but if that thing's in my backyard, I wouldn't be happy with it either. And so we really feel what you're saying. You know, it may not seem like it to you, but we really feel what you're saying. We agree with you, a lot of what you're saying. But to a large extent, not entirely, to a large extent, our hands are tied and there's very little that we can do. I do very much appreciate our city manager Miller and the staff members who reached out to Verizon and are at least attempting to negotiate with them in terms of where the tower is placed. But the reality is that if you want a change in this law, if you want us to have more say in it, if you want city management to have more say in it, this is an issue that has to be addressed in Lansing. You know, we would love to do more. We're going to see what more we can do, but this is really an issue that has to be addressed in Lansing. And as for the I-75, similarly, I know I have had conversations with our state representative, Pamakupa, who's very concerned about this issue. I have tried to reach out to the governor's staff to try to discuss personally, not on behalf of the entire council, but myself personally, you know, what can I do? And our influence, like the cell tower issue, our influence on the I-75 noise issue is limited, but that doesn't mean that we shouldn't try. We should try to do something, and we're definitely going to try to do something, do what we can. But we have to understand that until something changes in Lansing or in Washington, where these decisions are ultimately made and foisted upon us, you know, there is a limit to what we can do. But we're definitely going to try, and we very much hear you, and we thank you very much for coming out tonight. I know that, you know, coming out and on a weeknight is definitely probably put a burden on a lot of you, and I appreciate that you've made the time to come out and speak to us. Those of you who've emailed us, I very much appreciate that. I'm going to go back and reread your letter that you sent us, Mr. Labadie. I wish I could do more. And I share my fellow council members' frustration and how little that we can do on these issues, but I do thank you for coming out and talking to us.
Thank you, Councilmember Erickson-Galt. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, I see you up on the wall.
Sure,
but I
yes.
just wanna Go ahead.
I know it's a little awkward for me to be here like this, but first of all, I just want to thank everybody for coming out and spending their time this evening to talk to all of us. We really, really appreciate hearing from you, and we really understand the concerns that you are presenting to us. Many of you expressed that this was the first time that you've ever been to a city council meeting. So that means a lot. But I also want to say that, we are also a part of these neighborhoods as well. Myself, Mayor Baker, we live in Square Lakes, just north of Square Lake, very close to the I-75 project. Councilmember Chamberlain Krienga lives in the neighborhood with you guys as well, regarding the 5G utility pole. So we are experiencing these situations just like all of you are. We are a part of your neighborhoods. We are a part of this community just like all of you are. Even though we are elected and in this position, we understand everything that you are saying. We understand everything that you guys are going through because we are experiencing it as well. Sorry, I'm a little under the weather. That's why I'm home today. But I also want to reassure you that we are doing everything that we can in our power to make things better, and to try to do what we can. Both of these projects, the I-75 project and the 5G Verizon utility pole, all share one thing in common, in that it's beyond our control as a city, which is, it's unfortunate and it's frustrating, and it's frustrating all the way around. And so, like I said, we are doing everything that we can at the level and the position that we have to do what we can to make things better. And we will continue to fight for all of you, all of us, because like I said, this is all of us. We're experiencing this the same as all of you are, and we want to see things improve in our own neighborhoods as well. So I just want to reassure everybody that, that we are really trying to do everything that we can. And that's pretty much it. I think everyone else has very eloquently, stated a lot of what my feelings were, but I just wanted to reiterate it.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Brooks. I spoke at the beginning. I'm not going to repeat myself or what everyone else has said this evening, because they've all said very good things and varying degrees of thoughts that I have. I do want to reiterate a couple quick things, however. I know that as it relates to the sound wall, first of all, our city engineer, and he's probably spent more hours working on this issue over the past year than anything else, unfortunately. I mean, in a sense, and I want you to know that it's not something that's not being looked at constantly. And I've had hours of conversations with Councilmember Hoderick on the phone about this very issue. We've been talking about it. She did bring forth the referral, the resolution that we passed unanimously in the winter about this. And if I can say, she's been frustrated, as I have, that there hasn't been more response or a quicker reaction somehow, and recognizing that it takes time. Government, unfortunately, one of the things people hate about government is how slow it can be, and certainly you're going to probably walk away tonight in a sense thinking, well, I went down there and nothing changed, and how nice of them all to sit up there and look down on us and listen to us and then move on with their stuff. I get that. I'm a human and I'm a resident in these neighborhoods too. I want you to know that that's not where we're at with it. We can't rescind the permit for Verizon tonight. We're not empowered to do that. In fact, it's against our city charter. If we were to try to do something like that, one, it would go against our city charter. Two, it would put us in violation of Public Act 365, the law, and we just can't do that tonight. But I am thankful that we at least have the opportunity to have a discussion with Verizon. And before I found out that we were going to the city, I would have bet probably a large amount of money that they weren't going to take that meeting, because they don't need to. But the fact that they are, I mean, I'm impressed by that and hopeful, glass half full, like Councilmember Abraham. I think that I'll close with a repeat of what Edna said. At best, we're on the fringe of influence. I think that's a sad statement of how little empowered we are often, but very true in these cases. I will use our influence as best we can, and on behalf of all of you, on behalf of the city, and we'll find out if we can work with MDOT, anything else as it relates to a sound test. We'll work with Verizon. I do thank you for coming down tonight. It's surreal to see so many people in here again after almost a year and a half, and it's unfortunate that you're not here for some better reasons, although it was nice that we had our Boy Scout here, and I knew that was the high water mark of happiness when that standing ovation occurred, but we should have ended then. But again, know that we're working on it. I know it's not the immediate result you're looking for. I can see it in some of your eyes. I can see in some of your eyes that you understand a little better maybe, but we will continue to work on it. We'll continue to research options that we can do, but we are limited up here. We're limited as a city as it relates to the state and federal government. But please do also reach out to State Representative Koupa and State Senator McMorrow, Representative Stevens in Congress. Send your emails, send your letters. Many, if not all of us have as well. And I talk to Congresswoman Stevens frequently about this issue from the federal perspective. I know that she's trying to figure out something as well. It's an odd thing when you've got all of these people who are supposed to represent the people who can't figure out how to get something done. But it's just a lot of moving pieces in different agencies and departments. And it's, again, one of the things people don't like about government. And I recognize that. And also recognizing that I'm a part of it makes me not so thrilled. But I'll do what I can in my role, and I know that the rest of council will as well. So. That concludes City Council and City Administration response and reply to public comment. I'm going to take a 10-minute recess, so you don't all have to stay and sit through the rest of the meeting if you don't want to, but we'll take a quick break. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks is there still? Is Teresa still here?
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
No,
There she is. All right. All right. There are no postponed items this evening, so we'll move on to regular business. I-1 is board and committee appointments. There are no mayoral or city council appointments this evening. I-2 is board and committee nominations. Mayoral nominations, I will go ahead and make 2 nominations to the student representatives roles on Global Troy Advisory Committee for the terms expiring July 31st, 2022. I'd like to renominate Allison Liu and nominate Shariah Swaminathan.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hamilton, to renominate Allison Liu and nominate Shariah Swaminathan to the Global Troy Advisory Committee as student representatives for the term expiring July 31st, 2022. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up, to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority, I'd like to reappoint Joseph Vassallo for the term expiring April 30th, 2024.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Hoderick, that we nominate Joseph Vassallo to the Brownfield Redevelopment Authority for the term that expires April 30th, 2024. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes, motion carries. That's going to be it this evening. Mayor Pro Tem Brooks, anything for our city council nominations?
Not tonight.
Okay. That concludes board and committee nominations. Next up is I3, a request for closed session. I'll move, be it resolved that Troy City Council shall meet in closed session as permitted by MCL 15.268H, MCL 15.243, 1U and Y, and MCL 15.268E, Tollbrook versus City of Troy, and Tollbrook West versus City of Troy, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve I3, request for closed session as read into the record and printed in the agenda. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Motion carries. We'll have our closed session at the end of this regular agenda. Next up is I4, a bid waiver, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment and parts. That'll be introduced by Facilities and Grounds Operations Manager Dennis Trantham. Hi, Dennis.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Before you tonight is a request to waive the bid for purchase of HVAC equipment and parts, primarily for 20-ton and smaller units that we can install with in-house staff. Currently, we have a vast majority of Lennox units that we currently service. By having a sole unit, we reduce the need to stock multiple parts for different manufacturers. So council will still have the opportunity to approve any purchases that are made. So at this point, we're just asking for the authorization to go with the vendor.
Thank you, Dennis. Any questions for Dennis? Councilmember Erickson Galt.
Thank you, Mayor. I'll move I4, bid waiver, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment and parts as printed in the agenda.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Erickson Galt and supported by Councilmember Hoderick that we approve I4, bid waiver, heating, ventilation, and air conditioning equipment and parts as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Chamberlain Krenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I5, City Council Rules of Procedure. That'll be introduced by City Clerk Dixon.
Thank you, Mayor. The change to the rules of procedure that's being proposed tonight is to eliminate the public comment receipt by email, voicemail, and on the Zoom call. So that would be the only change that's presented tonight.
Thank you. Any questions for City Clerk Dixon? All right, I'll move I-5, City Council Rules of Procedure, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by the chair, supported by Councilmember Erickson Galt, that we approve I-5 City Council Rules of Procedure as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? Councilmember Hamilton.
I'm going to support this today, but I feel like as far as accessibility, that some of these options might be able to bring a voice to some residents that maybe aren't comfortable coming to meetings, or with the Delta variant spreading, we may need to come back to this. I kind of want to ask city staff if they could come up with different ideas. Could we benchmark other communities that maybe have a hybrid approach that works really well? Because I liked a lot of what we saw. I know a lot of times it would get cumbersome reading a lot of emails and everything, but I do think it served a valuable purpose to some residents that can't come here. So I'm going to support this today, but I'd like to look into this more, I think, to see what we could do.
City Manager Miller?
This would not prohibit residents or people from submitting emails, and they would just be handed out in the evening for each of you, as opposed to reading them.
Okay, and we could read them in the record.
Email's always been a way of public comment before the meeting. It's just that during COVID, they're trying to read and be extra open.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga?
So I also wanted to echo what Councilmember Hamilton just shared, is that also support this, and I think it makes sense. It's the right thing to do right now. My only concern is many of us, if you're in workplaces and you're in leadership or speaking to your leadership, you know that every major workplace out there is now talking about the Delta variant. There's a memo that's going out this week. We talked about it in our town hall today. And a lot of the plans that major corporations had for bringing staff back, from Apple to some of the other ones in September, they're now having to just take a rethink a little bit about what's possible with Delta variant. So just thinking about Delta, and I know we're lucky to be in Oakland County, we're 70% vaccinated. That is amazing. So we are in a little bit different position, perhaps. But from a change management perspective, if by chance things do get worse and we have to, rethink, maybe we're back in mass or something, I'm just wondering what that would be like for residents if we do have to switch back later, and will that cause any turbulence in anything? So, and how cumbersome might that be if we have, I know we have to, there's a lot of things that have to be updated in the press and everywhere in terms of public comment, and if that then has to be changed. So I just put that out there. I think this is the right thing to do right now, but just put that out there.
Thank you. I think I agree with what you both said in the sense that there is always a concern. I think we have the ability at every meeting to change our rules of procedure if we wanted to. I don't think city management would love it if we did that, but we certainly could. And just as we have been as nimble as possible in making adjustments along the way, should we need to face that again, I'm certain that we will. As a reminder, some of the most effective and prolific public comment has come in by emailing all of council. I can think back to the Racket Club discussion, and over 100 emails I think came through. So I mean, there's always a way to get in touch with us on council with city management. Forgive me, I don't remember off the top of my head. Is it citycouncil@troymi.gov that emails all of us, or just council?
I believe it's City Council. I can verify that. One second.
Okay. So there, you can email that. It'll get to all of us no matter what. And I hear what you're both saying. Totally agree. We did have dozens and dozens of people in person tonight, most without masks, and prepared for public comment as if it were the olden days. So it's odd all around, but I think this is an important step for now, and we'll see again if we need to make adjustments down the road. But hopefully those who feel like they maybe didn't have their best voice heard by having to come in public can realize there still are other means of getting in contact with us all the time. City Clerk Dixon?
The email is citycouncilemail@troymi.gov.
Certainly. Okay, thank you. All right, any other discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Erickson Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is I6, Contract Ratification, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, and that'll be introduced by City Manager Miller.
Thank you, Mayor. HR Director Jeanette Menig had a scheduled day off, so I'm taking this, and Kurt is in the audience if I need help, and he can chime in. So this is a contract for the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, much more commonly known as ASME. That's what everyone calls it. And it includes mostly employees from Public Works, but there are some engineering inspectors in this group also. So the most important thing that everyone looks to is how long is the contract, and it's 4 years. And the salary increases are 3.5%, 2.5%, 2%, and 2%. Of course, these always do some clarification of language, but we did do some significant things. We are now offering both normal dental insurance and enhanced. However, they've agreed to pay 5% of the premium, where in the past they weren't doing that. And if you do not enroll, you can get $25 a month for not taking that insurance. We've reduced sort of show-up pay to 1 hour when it can be done remotely, because it used to be for 3 hours. We also changed the qualifications to retire to be in line with all of the other groups. So we added age 55 and 25 years of service to be able to retire. We also, this group, back in the Great Recession, reduced paid health care benefit and retirement. It was reduced from 4% of your accruing that coverage to 3%. So now we're going back to 4. And you were only able to get up to 90% of coverage. Well, this moves it back up to a full 100% coverage in retirement. Now, not everybody gets that. Remember, a lot of our employees in all the groups, there are different tiers. So if you've been here long enough, some people might still have a retirement system. And the most new employees clearly don't have that. In fact, they don't even have paid health care and retirement. We also have found that, in general, new employees want vacation time. So we're offering some automatically, let's see here, 2 weeks of vacation if it's before June 30th, and then 1 week after June 30th. And you know, as always, we clean up language, and we'll answer any questions you have.
Thank you, City Manager Miller. Any questions from council? And this isn't, we've been looking at this for a while, and it's come to us, and I think many of our questions have already been answered. But anything new tonight? Councilmember Hamilton?
No one has a question. I'll just move the resolution. Yep. I'll move I6, Contract Ratification, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees, as printed in the agenda packet.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Hamilton, supported by Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga, that we approve I6, Contract Ratification, American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees. Any discussion? All right, the vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson-Galt?
Yes.
Motion carries. Next up is the consent agenda. Anyone like to pull an item for further discussion this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. I'd like to move all items on the consent agenda as printed.
Support.
Moved by Councilmember Abraham, supported by Councilmember Erickson-Galt, that we approve all items on the consent agenda as printed in the agenda packet. Any discussion? The vote, Ms. Dixon.
Councilmember Hoderick?
Yes.
Mayor Baker?
Yes.
Councilmember Abraham?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem Brooks?
Yes.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Crenga?
Yes.
Councilmember Erickson-Galt?
Yes.
Councilmember Hamilton?
Yes.
Motion carries. All items on the consent agenda have been approved. There are no memorandums and future council agenda items this evening. There are no council referrals this evening, so we move on to reports. We spoke significantly about the I-75 sound barriers report. Anyone else like to speak on the reports this evening? Councilmember Abraham.
Thank you, Mayor. There are two that I'd like to highlight. The first is M2A, the Troy Racquet Club Annual Report. As some people may remember, in April of 2018, there was a bid going out for who would manage the Troy Racket Club, and we had a very large public engagement, probably 50 to 60 people that came to that meeting to speak about those that were vying for the contract, and who ultimately got the contract to run that report, had outlined a number of things that they were planning on doing with the club in terms of modernizing, updating, and just enhancing the club in general. And reading this annual report, it really affirmed why that was the right decision back on April 9th, 2018, to award that contract. They have lived up to everything that they said that they were going to do, and I'm really pleased to see them succeeding despite some really difficult times in the pandemic, that they've been able to thrive. So that was the first report I wanted to acknowledge. The second, and I'm going to beat Councilman Hamilton to it, is M2D. City Clerk Aileen Dixon named Democracy Fellow, National Conference on Citizenship. So Ms. Dixon knows that this council thinks the world of her, and glad to see that others beyond the city, county, and state also recognize what a tremendously talented clerk that she is, and so wanted to give accolades once again. Congratulations. Thank you for serving.
Thank you, Councilmember Abraham. Councilmember Hamilton?
You stole my thunder. Share the same thing. So I'll just mention M2B, which is if you're really passionate about the bathrooms at our parks. They're getting major renovations this year. So I'm excited for that because I do go to the parks a lot with my daughters.
I don't know why that caught me off guard. Any other comments on the reports? I actually did want to talk about M2E, the final report on the Oakland County Restaurant Relief Program. So I spend a lot of time, or I have spent a lot of time over the pandemic and even prior, participating in the Troy Chamber Hospitality Committee meetings, which are a good group of our hotel and restaurant owners primarily in the city who meet monthly and talk about the issues facing them. And one of the things our economic development specialist, Glenn Lapin, shared at our last hospitality committee meeting last week was the success of the Oakland County Restaurant Relief Program. And I think in this round there were 19 restaurants in Troy that participated, and several of them I've spoken with the owners and have been on the premises, and they really did appreciate the opportunity to have those funds. And I think one of the ones that you can see, Sedona Tap House, you can see some of what Marty Nolenberg has done out there, but the one that I really like is the Aldana's Mexican Bar and Grill at Coolidge and Maple. That outdoor seating area was built with the funds from the Oakland County Restaurant Relief Program, because the program was for outdoor dining. It was one of the things that were targeted with that. So I appreciate the work that Glenn has done to work with the county on that, and also the restaurants that took advantage of that opportunity, and I hope that it did help them out quite a bit. Mark?
I would like to highlight to council that Glenn Lapin is available via remotely. So what we're doing when staff have a very low likelihood of they're not making a presentation, very low likelihood, they're available if necessary. So if you had a question, you could have asked.
Well, I guess I should ask Glenn. Glenn, did I misstate any of the facts in that relief program? You speak so eloquently on it, but if you want to just go ahead and touch on that.
No, there were 16 restaurants that participated in the program. We worked with all of them. They were so happy to be able to get assistance through the Oakland County program. We're very grateful to Oakland County for what they've done and provided for these restaurants, and we're glad they were able to to take advantage of that. And it really has made a difference, not just for the outdoor seating areas, but also it helped them with some PPE that was needed, and also making some technology improvements with their restaurants. So they were able to transition to some more outdoor dining, more carry-out business, so the technology helped them do their business better. So that was the whole point of the program. We're glad to be involved with it.
Thank you, Glenn. Appreciate that. Nice to see you. All right. That concludes reports, comments on the reports. Council comments is next, or are next. Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga.
Thank you, Mayor. The first one, I just really want to thank Community Affairs Director Cindy Stewart for putting forward the proclamation we read today, C2, proclamation to celebrate National Disability Independence Day. I know it is something that's near and dear to many of our hearts here in this room, and including Cindy. When it came to my mind and I reached out to Cindy, I was going to see my grandmother. She has dementia. It's the first time I was able to see her in many months. She's of course, in a home, and due to COVID, wasn't able to see her. And she had devoted much of her life. She was a teaching assistant working with children with disabilities, and so something near and dear to my heart as well. So I was really glad that we could do that tonight. It's very important. I know it's something we hadn't done before, so it was special. And it's today as well, so I was glad we were able to do that. Second thing, I did want to go back to the 5G poll just quickly and ask city management if it's something that we need to seek some kind of council consensus to explore the possibility of what it might look like to seek to inform residents and organizations when there's one going up within a certain radius. And I don't know exactly what that kind of radius is, but for example, I mentioned if we look at this list, there's one going up in front of Christ Our Light. It's also in my neighborhood. It's a church. Just wondering, has that church been informed? Is that, and I know that would take time from staff, so it's just something I want to put out there and as something that we could explore. And I know it doesn't mean we can do anything, and don't want to frustrate residents necessarily, but want them to know, because I think the first thing is people just want to know. So I just want to put that out there and see what would have to happen to explore that option.
Councilmember Chamberlain-Kranga can see consensus. I guess I'm going to just say this. I don't think I can give my consensus to that. I don't think that's the best use of city management's time right now. And I have big fears that it would create potentially a program that wouldn't be effective or too expensive, or I'm not really sure. I don't think I want to give direction to move in that direction to city management at this point. Maybe I'm wrong, so I'm happy to hear from anybody else that feel strongly on that. But to me, I know it's very expensive to provide notices. I don't know what that program would look like, how you would determine. I don't think we're set up in City Hall to be monitoring every permit that gets issued to then have to do letters and mailings that basically say this is happening, there's nothing we can do about it, here you go. I'm not sure that's the best government. And so I'm struggling with that. I know you brought it up earlier. I know you've just asked to look into it. I get that. I know city management has spent a lot of time over this weekend preparing for tonight based on things that have come forward and the email that Mr. Bloom initially sent. So I'm just trying to wrap my head around it. I'll go ahead, and if you wanted to say something else.
Plan B maybe. Okay, maybe not that. And I'm just speaking out of what we heard residents. If you took notes, a lot of what was coming out is I just wanted to know. I think the first thing they wanted to know. So I'm just trying to be responsive. But a plan B, so rightly so, could take a lot of time and energy, is because this is a new sort of technology. That's what I've learned. I've done so much research on 5G this week, and I'm again grateful for city administration for all that you shared with us. Is that right now there's only 24. Like, could there maybe be a report? As this is new technology, cities, this is going to happen. Of course, we know it is happening around the country. But maybe what it is to have a report once a year that's on an agenda that shares the latest one. That's not, I think, a big burden for staff. You have to, yes, pull and check the permits, but and then it's up to us, our job, to be able to spread that word through social media, our neighbors, to just keep people aware if there are those that are in the neighborhood, and then we can take that upon ourselves as leaders. So that's another plan B.
This is not a back and forth. That sounds like it. Plan B sounds better to me. City Manager Miller, I can't remember who I was talking, whether it was you or City Attorney Bloom or somebody else, but over the weekend, or I think on Saturday at our planning meeting, there was talk about maybe our website could have more information about 5G and what we can do. I don't remember which one of you
Well,
said
actually,
anything about
that
that.
came from Councilwoman Chamberlain-Craig, where she gave us the information what Berkeley does. That's how that started.
Okay. So
Berkeley has an extensive information on their website about these small cells.
I'm more willing to give consensus to look into something like that that provides more passive notification in that sense. The information's there. I think that I'm certainly not trying to hide anything. I want to make that very clear. But I don't know how that would necessarily work, if that's something that could be done. And then if we wanted to include planned spots for them that could even be included on that website, that'd be something worth considering. Ellen?
One thing to consider when we do that is it does look like we own it.
Yeah.
And we don't. And so, but then our staff resources and our time is still spent answering the questions and addressing the concerns of projects that aren't within our scope. So I think we need to be thoughtful about how we proceed, because I come out of communications as well, too, and it takes time to craft, update, keep current, respond to requests that come because somebody trips on that while they're on our city website, and we have limited resources in City Hall. We don't have, I worked in staffs, communication staffs of multiple people with the focus, and really good communication like that takes a lot of time and effort. So, I'm hesitant because it looks like we're owning, and then we're communicating on behalf of these cell providers. It's their project. It's kind of like the Modernize I-75. I pointed people to them, to MDOT and Modernize I-75 for all their questions, for all the updated information. So I think if there are links that the cell companies have that people can go to see what the plans are in the region, that would be something I'd be happy to share. But if there's not, what we can create is a lot of frustration for people who assume we know more and have more power and can control more than the law currently allows. So I'm hesitant, not because I'm not trying to be transparent or I'm not open to communication. That's what I'm about too. But communication that is helpful and constructive, I think we need to think about it. I guess I'd like some time to think about how we might proceed and maybe do some research on my own, in my own time, if we could, before I would give a consensus direction of some kind.
Is there anybody else? Looking at our city council rules of procedure, technically, we're supposed to all have the opportunity to speak before we start repeating. I break that rule myself, but let me go to Assistant City Manager Bruner first.
Yeah, I just wanted to point out that the lists that were provided today are only the small cell facilities in the public right-of-way, which those are the only ones the city can regulate. There are plenty of other antennas, big,
Right.
medium, small, otherwise, right, on private property. So it is feasible that, you could have a small cell facility adjacent to a residential neighborhood or something that's on private property that's, the city would have no knowledge of. So really all we could communicate about is just those that are in the right of way, and I can't tell you if that's a quarter of them or half of them or 3/4 of them. But this is one of the things that it gets really difficult to communicate about this issue. So I just wanted to point that out.
Thank you. Anyone else before I let Councilmember Chamberlain-Craig go again? Go ahead.
It was just a third thing, but just to say, yes, so as City Manager Miller and I were speaking, that was one thing I said with an FAQ or something, the website, it can raise a red flag that you don't want to raise, in a sense, but happy to do more research and all that. The third thing is, and I just want to say is, I did steal Councilmember Hamilton's thunder, so, you had this idea around a proclamation, that's something that potentially we could do, also if there was consensus at some point with that, around, or resolution to send to Lansing to just advocate for changes. And I know had a chance, as I'm sure Councilmember Hamilton did, talk to City Manager Miller, and I know that staff would be very eager because you have fought it, you have made a statement, on it. So, but I'll turn that over to Councilmember Hamilton Moore because that was your great idea you had.
Oh, yeah.
Councilmember Hamilton?
I'll do my whole comment period if everyone's okay with that.
Go ahead.
Yeah, no, we'll talk about that, and maybe one of us can bring it forward as a referral, and we'll have a formal discussion on it with everyone, and we can modify it and everything. As far as your idea, I'm open to looking at it with the caveat of not, using a lot of staff's time. I like the idea if Berkeley's already doing like another municipality's already doing something, that we could mimic that. I always like the idea if someone else is doing something better than us, then it'd start with that. So if we could look at Berkeley or what other communities are doing, maybe to inform. My thought is, what's the worst form of communication? Is it providing that information on the website, or is it people seeing the markings on their right away in front of their house and then at the last minute realizing what's happening? It's a difficult question, actually. And I understand what the mayor was saying, that ultimately this is out of our hands. The state took the power away from us, and it's it should be on the state to do this and inform people, and we're taking that on because they forced us. But I'm open to looking into it, though. I would give my approval of it, but at least looking into the next steps. My other question was, we should be getting the audits for the pension and retiree health care and VFIP soon, right? Is that done?
You mean actuarials?
Yeah, the actuarial part, sorry, yep. Is that out yet, or I think that's coming out?
I don't have a new copy.
Okay, so I want to start digging into it, but usually they send it in the agenda packet in August. So.
I believe it comes out every 2 years.
Yeah, all three. The healthcare is 2 years. The other ones are every year. So
okay.
Right. I'm a nerd. I want to read it in detail. I want to know how much we have to contribute because I think it's going to go down. So I'm excited to read it, but we'll get it soon, probably in the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
That's it.
Anyone else? I think I'd like to sit and wait and think about this like Councilmember Hoderick did before we give you any direction on how to move forward in that. I'm not sure Berkeley's plan is the best plan, so I'd want to look. I mean, they're not a like city, so I'd not necessarily want to model myself after them. Nothing against Berkeley. And I don't know. I think there's flags up all over the rights of way with lots of projects going on. That is how people find out about a lot of stuff, and I don't know that I want to change how that works. Understanding this is a very different situation for now, probably much like other utilities and forms of technology were in the past. So I have to really think about that, and I will. I feel like I had good news, fun stuff to share in council comments, and now I can't remember it. But we did have a great chili cook-off that Resident Wyatt Lucas put together as a fundraiser for hockey mentors at the Nature Center this weekend. The Assistant Fire Chief Firth and Officer Pokley from the police department and I were guest judges and ate too much chili and had a good time. Troy, our choice for the winner was the chili made by the Historic Village crew. So Jen Peters was there, and they were in full costume. So it was worth it. I think that's it. Okay. We do have a closed session this evening, so we will recess from here and eventually reconvene in closed session in the back, and then we'll eventually adjourn from there. So we're in recess.
Do we do the